What's going on, guys? So I just found this clip on YouTube about a doctor reacted to the Pat McAfee show where how to treat and manage a collapsed lung like Drew Brees had. So I'm gonna share my reactions to it. Play.
All too much. They really just inflated back. Did they just send somebody down there?
I don't know the procedure, but I just know they were inflated.
Not exactly Pat McAfee.
Not quite Pat McAfee. Let's talk. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and this is your #1 source for learning about the unique medical side of the world of sports. Someone sent me this clip from the Pat McAfee show the other day where he was talking about how they treat and manage a collapsed lung like Drew Brees had. And no real hate on Pat here. He's not a doctor. He shouldn't know. But they...
Well, I don't really watch the Pat McAfee show that much. I just know that he used to play for the Colts so much. Colts. That's like go. Like I understand that you're a doctor because of this skeleton you have, the legs and the hamstring and the hands. I'm not sure what this rock is about.
completely misexplained here what they do. And so I'm going to clear
Oh,
it up
the
in
rock.
this video
So this
what he said and fill in the gaps to explain to you guys how they really treat this with Drew Brees' collapsed lung.
Collapsed lung. How many lungs you got? Two?
Yeah, that's it.
So we're off to a good start. Pat McAfee's right here. We have two lungs, a right and a left, but within each...
Yes, I mean indeed we do have two lungs, on the right and the left.
we have multiple lobes. On the left side, it's pretty easy. We have a left superior lobe, and then we have
Yeah.
a left inferior lobe. On the right, a little more complicated.
Yeah. You're right about the lobes. We do have a left inferior lobe and a left superior lobe and a left inferior lobe. But on the right, it's a little more complicated. But it's like three lobes, an inferior, middle, and a superior lobe. But there's still two lungs overall. Oh.
But still pretty easy. We have a right superior lobe, we have a right middle lobe, and then we have a right inferior lobe. So three lobes on the right, two lobes on the left, still two lungs overall.
What's the deal? Everybody talks like, oh, punctured lung, not that big of a deal. Collapsed lung, not that big of a deal. It's like, what happened?
Yeah, usually a collapsed lung is not that big of a deal, but they can develop something called...
Well, collapse lung not that big of a deal. I think like Drew Bledsoe once had like a rib fractures in that game against the Jets. I thought he had like a collapsed lung, like with blood vessels, and I thought they nearly killed him. I don't know why you say that collapsed lung is not that big of a deal.
tension pneumothorax, where that pressure builds up so much in the lung that it can actually push on the blood vessels of the heart, impairing your cardiac output, and can actually be fatal. So typically, yeah, collapsed lungs, while very painful and needing management, aren't always life or death. They can develop into a tension pneumothorax, which actually can be fatal. So they have to be taken very seriously nonetheless.
It's a couple. They work together. Oh, so you tagged each other?
I think so. Yeah.
Good point here, too. The lungs do work together. There are people who can have...
Lungs work together. Indeed, but you know that not really anything to say.
a lobectomy, where they essentially remove one of those lobes of the lung, and you can still get enough oxygen perfusion to your blood. So yes, when someone has a collapsed lung, they can still get enough oxygen for kind of vital functions, but you're going to feel very short of breath, and it's going to be super painful.
One takes up the slack.
And when the one collapses, how come do they just send like people go over there and just like take a plunger and like bring it back?
They inflate it.
How's it work? How does it work?
All right, so they do not just re-inflate the lung whenever somebody has a collapsed lung, and this is kind of the biggest misconception here from his video.
I went to high school with a kid who had a collapsed lung in a game.
Also note here, I've had multiple collapsed lungs, so I've kind of been through...
You're right about the part. They don't just re-inflate the lung, but when I went to Google like how to treat a collapsed lung, when symptoms usually include like chest pain and shortness of breath, a collapsed lung can be a life-threatening event. And the treatment usually does involve, it usually involves like inserting a needle or a chest tube between the ribs to remove the excess air. But a small collapsed lung could heal on its own. But you're right that you don't just re-inflate the lung, but
through this in terms of the symptoms. symptoms and how they treat it, so I have a little bit of experience, unlike a lot of the other sports injuries I talk about.
Inflate it, and then you're out for
What?
blow it up like a
Send
balloon.
something down, like a bed, like an air mattress.
Exactly.
You got somebody just stepping on it. Yeah, it was like in Space Jam, right? And then they check the PSI, and then they puncture it. You know what I mean?
Dude, Pat McAfee, what the heck?
Alright, so I know Pat's kind of joking here, probably intentionally, but might not actually understand how we actually treat these. No, you don't go in and re-inflate the lung when the lung collapses. What you do is you suck the air out of the space around the lung, which allows the lung to re-inflate itself. Our lungs are surrounded by this layer of tissue called a visceral pleura, and then there's a parietal pleura that's on the inside.
Well, yeah, I did to look on Google, like, you know, you need a needle or a chest tube to remove the excess air out of the lung. So,
The chest wall. There's a potential space in between those two linings, and that potential space is actually at a negative pressure with normal breathing. When you have a collapsed lung, what's happened is there's air that's escaped the lung or gotten in from the outside of the body that goes into that potential space, and the pressure goes up. As the pressure goes up, that increasing pressure actually pushes the lung inward. So it's not really that the lung collapses, so to speak. It's more so that the lung is getting pushed to collapse because of the pressure in the chest building up from excess air. What they actually do to treat these is, if it's an emergency type of situation, they'll take a needle with an empty syringe and they'll stick that into the chest to allow that pressure to blow out and escape from the chest wall to let the lung reinflate. When somebody puts a chest tube in, it's
Indeed,
trying to
but
drain the air from the chest cavity. So you're not putting air back into the lung to pump it back up like an inflatable bed. You're pulling the air that's got into that space out so the lung can reinflate itself.
They really just inflate it back up. Do they just send somebody down there?
I don't know the proceed.
So again, no, they don't send anything down there. They come in from the outside. They put a needle in. They put a tube in. That allows the air to escape, which lowers that pressure and lets the lung reinflate. So you don't inflate the lung. You pull the air out of the chest cavity.
Oh, fun. Hey, did you ever have a collapsed lung?
I had a bruised lung, I guess, but no.
What is a bruised lung?
Bruised lung is a lung contusion from any sort of trauma, just the impact on the lung. The lung is tissue like anything else that can bleed and become bruised, so it doesn't actually rupture or puncture in the sense that air can escape into the chest cavity. You just get a bruise on the lung.
How big's your lung, too? Like this big?
No, the lungs are not this big. The lungs fill up your entire kind of chest cavity. Here we can see.
yeah, indeed, I am also against Pat McAfee on that. It's just that, like, you know, you do, just, the lungs aren't that big. The lungs fill up your entire body.
The side on the right, the left, and they really do sit just beneath.
Hey guys, I gotta skip all the way to the end. I'm showing on this video here. I'm running out of time. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you guys later.